Hello and welcome to Local Edition. I'm Leslie Layton. The Inland Empire Economic Partnership is working to get our local economy and growth back on track. And with us now to tell us more about that is Dr. John Husing, who is the Chief Economist with the partnership. Thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure.
Now you say you have 4 major initiatives to pull this off. Tell us about those.
The 4 are interactive. If you think of what you need is a pro-jobs agenda. What do we do to create jobs for people who live in this area? First and foremost, you've got a private business sector. That private business sector, if it is not competitive if we're not competitive as a region for those companies, they can't create jobs here. They won't. They'll go someplace else. Who gets hurt? Workers. So you've got to have an agenda for competition or for competitiveness for business. Second piece of the puzzle. Local government has a lot to do with competitiveness. We need local government to understand how to be responsive to the ability to create jobs in this area. Number 3, we have a very low educational attainment in this area. 48% of the population in San Bernardino County, 46% in Riverside, stop with high school or less education. That is not a labor force for the 21st century. So we've got an educational challenge if, in fact, we're going to be able to compete and have our workers move into the middle class or above. Finally, quality of life is an issue that's often taken care of by money being donated by major foundations into a region to help an area take on public health and issues of that kind. $3 per capita is what we get in San Bernardino County. 119 is the California average. So we have a huge challenge to what do we do to increase giving, corporate and foundation giving into our region. So we're working on all 4 of those simultaneously.
Well, those are huge. I can't even imagine how you begin to tackle those.
Well, that's kind of what our challenge is.
And that's what you're working away at all the time. One of the big things you always work on, too, is regulatory challenges so that you can keep businesses healthy, so that you can get people employed.
Competition and regulatory environment are hugely interconnected. The problem when you talk to business is about why aren't we competitive? Why are you putting your growth outside the state? The first thing they all say is not that we mind regulation to clean up the environment. What they mind is the constant changing of the regulations to the point where they cannot plan. If you cannot,
tell us what the rules are and we'll be able to play the game.
But the trouble is the rules are changing, and that drives them nuts and also drives the jobs away from us. And so that's one thing that we're closely looking at. Second thing, this is an illustration, hospitals. Part of the work we do, we interviewed 7 administrators at hospitals. All 7 hospitals have projects ready to go to build new facilities. Altogether in Southern California, there's 236,000 jobs worth of construction ready to go. There's a group called OSHPD, the Office of State Planning, Health Planning and Development. Those 236,000 jobs are tied up in that agency. They can't seem to get their work done. We can't create the plans are done. The money's there. We can't break ground because of a group of bureaucrats sitting up in the Capitol can't get their work done. Those are the sorts of things we're going after. You
know, you also talk about the lack of grant funding and the effect that is having on our local economy. Tell us about that.
Well, essentially what the granting groups say to us is the Inland Empire's approach grant receiving like a broken windshield. You got all these little tiny pieces, but nobody with a grand strategy, which is what the granting agencies want. So by linking the Community Foundation into the IEP and tying it to business, government, and education, you now have the heft to go after major foundation money. And we're now putting that together.
Well, I'm glad some smart people in the Inland Economic Partnership are working on this. Thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure.
And thank you for tuning in. More HLN next.